Sometimes we get lucky. And that's exactly how I felt recently when a friend of mine messaged me saying he was working at a house where they'd ripped out several solid wood worktops and asked if I wanted them. These aren't your regular solid wood worktops though. Most are made up of what are called staves of wood finger jointed together, and that's fine, but for a woodworker that stuff isn't so useful to repurpose. These however have been made up out of long planks of hardwood, which I really didn't expect, and I immediately got excited about what I can do with this. These pieces on the right are solid beech. A nice find, but this piece on the left is solid oak. To buy this quantity of prime white oak from a timber yard, by the way, I worked out would cost in the region of £450 to £500, plus VAT. I've got two projects in mind for this video. The first is going to be a floor lamp, but with some storage shelves, and I'm going to use this piece of beech. As you can see, it's pretty warped, but that isn't going to matter for what I'm going to be doing with it. There's a really interesting wavy grain pattern in the middle of this, so I'll keep that for something nice. I also want to avoid the areas where these joints are, so I'll just cut in between those. Elsewhere, the grain is pretty underwhelming, and I'll make use of that for the legs. I'm truing up the edges at the table saw first, and then I can start cutting and milling up some legs. This is going to be a really complicated project. I've done a lot of thinking, but I still don't know if this is going to work. But the trick to getting ahead is getting started. If I just work with two legs for now, I know that I want the splay of my legs at the bottom to be about 550mm. And then at the top, I want the splay to be quite small. And I don't know how long I need my legs to be, but I'm going to worry about that later. I'm going to use my speed square to find out roughly what angle this is off 90. So if I use the pivot function, which is here, I can see that that is about 7.5 degrees, and I'll check it on this side too, again about 7.5 degrees, so that's what I'm going to work to. Now I can decide roughly where my shelves are going to be. This is just what looks right to my eye at the moment. None of this is an exact science, and I'm also going to measure the width of my shelves. Now I'm going to need a jig for the bandsaw that's going to help me cut circles. I'm tilting the bandsaw table to 7.5 degrees, and then I can cut a blank for making my first shelf. I measure the radius of the circle that I want and add a pin which will be my pivot point for cutting a perfect circle. I just drilled a hole in the middle off camera to accept that pin. Then I set up for my second, smaller shelf. Now to put this thing together, I'm going to need a few random things found around the workshop to help support everything. And this is looking like it might work. I can reference from the shelves to mark up where to cut some joinery. Then I can transfer those marks and angles onto each leg. And I started out aiming to get my joints nice and snug by cutting them by hand and then test fitting once the shelves had been sanded down. But then realised that the tighter my joints are, the more difficult this thing is going to be to assemble at the glue up stage. So I ended up cutting most of the joinery at the bandsaw instead. Yes, it's a little more rough, but a few small gaps isn't going to bother me, and if it makes assembling easier, then that's a win-win as far as I'm concerned. I decided to add a big round over to the legs. And then I could do a dry fit just to check everything goes together okay. And it almost did, but one joint was too tight, so I'm glad I did this dry fit. I'll label up the position of each leg, and then I can refine the fit of that one joint before returning all of the components back to where they were. I'm going to use polyurethane glue here, and I need to work quickly to get this together because this stuff skins over pretty quickly. This time everything went together okay, and I just need to sight through to make sure that the legs are aligned. Again, I don't need perfection here, I just want it to look good by eye. With the legs on the flat surface of my workbench, I can now scribe a line to work to so that I can get them sitting flat. And now I need to cut another circle for the top, but this time with the table set to 0 degrees. And then using the laser level, I can mark up and cut the top of the legs flat too. This is the lamp fitting that I bought, and I'll need to cut a big hole through the centre of my top circle to be able to push this through. I'd rather do it this way than mess about with wiring, and besides, it didn't look like there was any easy way to get inside the inline switch on the cable. I centred the top circle and then traced around the top of my legs so that I can route out some housings. I'm trying not to use any mechanical fixings on this project, just wood and glue. Recently my business took on its first employee, so I want to introduce you to my apprentice, and she's going to be getting all of the best jobs. Sandpaper. So far my apprentice has been a real time saver, and something else that is a time saver is Incogni, a personal data removal service which contacts data brokers on your behalf and forces them to delete your data from their databases. There are thousands of data brokers out there online, all collecting your data and building profiles on you, not only for the purposes of annoying spam emails, cold calls and targeted advertisements, but also for scams and other nefarious activities. Since I signed up with Incogni about a year ago now, they have found and completed the removal of 202 instances of my data online, and they are in the process of removing another 17 as I speak. You have every right to contact those data brokers and ask for your data to be removed yourself, but the process of finding out which data brokers have your data, figuring out how to get it removed, and continually monitoring the situation to make sure that it doesn't get acquired again is time consuming and frustrating. Incogni makes it quick and easy. There's also a custom removal feature allowing you to report instances of your personal data that you might find online to Incogni so that they can action its removal. Take your personal data back with Incogni. Use the code RAGANDBONE at the link below and get 60% off an annual plan. There's one final circle that I need to cut. I'll just do this one freehand since it's quite a tight radius, and then I'm going to resaw this to give me 2. I don't quite know what to call this component. Is it a bushing, a grommet, an escutcheon? You tell me, but basically these will be used to secure the light fitting in place, making that big hole that I cut earlier a much smaller hole. I got all my waxes out to do some testing, and I ended up choosing a dark oak one. The main goal here was to get a similar colour tone to the Iroko that I used on the media wall that I built a few months back, so kind of like a medium brown to match the other pieces in the room. I also added this to the cord to help it blend in. In hindsight, I think I should have made the lamp maybe 150mm shorter, but in a way I kind of like how it dominates the room. While I'm here, we would like a bigger coffee table to help fill this space and also hide some of these ugly wires. And I can make use of this lovely piece of oak to make the top. for the legs of my table, that big slab of oak is too valuable to me to be cutting it up into smaller pieces, especially when I've got some pieces like this, which will be perfect. For the joinery, I'll be doing bridle joints. Regular viewers will know that this is my favourite joint for their appearance. They're also incredibly strong, and I find them enjoyable to put together. This jig allows me to position each workpiece upright, and I just need to cut some blocks to offset the workpiece so that the blade lines up right where I want it to cut. This block can then be refined with a hand plane, and then I can set the height of the blade to the thickness of the material. I'll pin that block in place just so it doesn't move around, and repeatedly and accurately make those cuts. And I can then use those cuts to reference where I want to make the mating cuts to the remaining workpieces. And for that I'll need a new spacer block, which is the kerf size of the blade wider than the previous one, to allow me to cut on the inside of the mark rather than the outside. And I always do this to a test piece before making a cut to the finished workpiece, just so that I can check the fit, and this looks like it will be perfect. With the blade height still set, I can then hog out most of the waste from the slot mortise piece. And then cut the shoulders of the tenon piece. As you can see, this is a great fit. One of the joints was a little too tight for some reason. I've got some more oak that I can use to make a shelf. So unfortunately one of the boards that I had is red oak, whereas the other two are white oak, but this is going to get stained, which is going to help blend the colours a little bit more. And also it's a shelf, it's going to sit under the top, so it's not going to be particularly visible anyway. I can now cut some housings in the legs to accommodate the shelf. And to do this, I'll use my flat tooth 5mm curved blade. People always ask me about this, so I'll leave a link to it in the description box below. I've made a stupid mistake. You might have seen in the earlier footage that some of this oak has some big blemishes on, and the plan was to put these on the inside and underside of the table. However, I've cut the grooves on the wrong side, meaning that I think I'm going to have to try a patch repair. For now, I'll just get some filler inside, but I'll make sure that it's pushed right in, and I'll come back to this later. After adding some roundovers, I can get this frame together. I'm going to be using some water-based dye because once again I want to stain this a medium brown colour. I've got dark oak here, which is too dark, and medium oak, which is too light, so I'm going to combine the two. And I'm going to be using an oil-based finish over the top of this dye. And you might think oil-based over water-based, is that a good idea? And actually what I tend to find is that if you use a spirit-based dye and then an oil-based finish, it can reactivate that dye, and then it's kind of spreading the colour around and making a real mess. I've never had an issue using water-based dye as long as you allow it to fully cure before applying the top coat of oil-based finish. I left it 24 hours and then I can denib with 400 grit, clean off the dust, and apply the first coat of hard wax oil. I left that for another 36 hours and then denibbed once again. And then for the second coat, I applied the hard wax oil with a maroon scouring pad before wiping away any excess. 8 hours later, and I can secure the top to the frame. I drilled out the holes on the underside of the top to accommodate some of these M6 insert nuts. And these have a nasty habit of breaking, especially when used in hardwoods. So I like to drill out the holes about 1/2 or 1 millimeter bigger than the shaft of the nut, and also do the final tightening by hand. And then I'm widening the holes in the frame to 10 millimeters, which is a few millimeters bigger than the shaft of the bolts that I'll be using. This will allow the top to expand and contract with seasonal humidity changes. Now to work on that patch repair using some hard wax repair sticks. So this table here is the one I built 10 years ago on the channel now, October 2016. And I really like this still, so we're just going to move this elsewhere. And I'll give it a fresh coat of wax. This one is pretty heavy.